Welcome to Mystic Realms Recap. Links are in the description below. Please show some love of the author and me. On to the show. The bones were cut out with a knife, and it was still a death cut. In the face of the Skeleton King with a strong physique and the blessing of the bone shield, Sumu's normal attack is difficult to work. Even the boss skill of smashing the air is too scattered to hurt the Skeleton King. Only death cuts can make Sumu a real threat and damage to Skeletron. The bone shield is very defensive and can automatically defend. But no matter how powerful this bone shield was, it had already been shattered. There are still 3 sides of the bone shield that surround Skeleton King, but Sumu's physical strength can support him to release 16 more death cuts. Fighting the Skeleton King is never easy. Before coming to Death Castle, Sumu was mentally prepared for a protracted war or even defeat. Boom! A jet-black blade of light slashed out. In the angry roar of the Skeleton King, the bone shield surrounding it was reduced by 1 side again, leaving only 2 sides. And without releasing his skills, the Skeleton King, whose speed is far inferior to Sumu, doesn't even have the ability to even hit Sumu. Once. Twice. 3 times. When the 4th death cut broke out, the bone shields surrounding Skeleton King were all torn to shreds. This Skeleton King who once brought Sumu a great threat. His body was also really exposed. In front of Sumu. Roar! Growled angrily. The 2-handed warhammer in the Skeleton King's hand was raised high, and after the wisps of black mist lingered in it, it suddenly fell and bombarded the ground. Only what erupted this time was not the rolling earth and shock waves. A layer of blue light spread around the bombardment point, and instantly spread to hundreds of meters away. Just under Sumu's gaze. Earth cracked. One after another, the pale bone claws broke open the ground and revealed. Immediately afterwards, countless white bones turned over the soil and climbed out of the ground. In just a few seconds, a skeleton army with a number of thousands appeared around Skeleton King and surrounded him. This army of skeletons, including 4 warrior skeletons, namely, the Skeleton Raider, the Skeleton Sniper, the Skeleton Warden and the Dark Mage, including 40 elite skeletons, namely Elite Skeleton Swordsman, Skeleton Archer, Skeleton Guard and Horror Mage. The rest are all skeletons with advanced occupations. Skeleton King's 3rd skill, Skeleton Summoning. It is also the only boss skill that Skeleton King has. No wonder, the Skeleton King didn't care about the number of skeleton legions under his command. Except for the 8 skeleton legions that came to patrol and harvest, the rest were swallowed up by him. Because of the boss skill of Skeleton Summoning, the Skeleton King himself is a skeleton army. A skeleton army is naturally not enough to threaten Sumu. But in the battle between Sumu and Skeleton King, such a sudden appearance of a skeleton army is enough to break the balance between the two and by Skeleton King for a while. Permanent? For a while? The question in his mind flashed past, and Sumu's figure disappeared again. He doesn't waste time. The Skeleton King who lost his bone shield is undoubtedly the most vulnerable time. Even with the obstacles of the Skeleton Legion, Sumu wants to try it. With only the body of the bones, can the Skeleton King withstand the power of death cutting? Step out. Sumu appeared behind Skeletron again. The skeleton sword was cut down, and 10 dark light blades slashed straight towards the Skeleton King. At the same time, the warrior skeletons and elite skeletons in the summoned skeleton army also launched an attack on Sumu at the same time. Bone Arrow. Shockwave. Hellfire Bomb. Dark Orb. Another phase shift, dodging the fire focus attack, Sumu's figure appeared in the core of bones. Smashing the air. Countless dark red light blades exploded. Shred large swathes of warrior skeletons and advanced skeletons into shattered skeletons. But on Sumu's attribute panel, a hint of experience gained has not been refreshed. In other words, these summoned skeletons are still regarded as part of the Skeleton King's strength in essence. And what about the Skeleton King? The Skeleton King avoided the key point, and the 10 blades of light did not hit its neck, but landed on its heavy back. The explosion of 20 times the normal attack left huge scars on Skeleton King's back, directly destroying a quarter of Skeleton King's health. 3 more death cuts. Sumu can kill the Skeleton King. Only. Skeleton King obviously has more than the 3 skills it has unleashed. When the blood volume dropped sharply, Skeleton King released his 4th skill, Bone Devouring. The endless breath of death erupted, like tiny chains wrapped around the skeletons and broken bones around Skeletron. Next moment. These skeletons and broken bones fluttered in the air and rushed towards the Skeleton King. In the blink of an eye, these skeletons and broken bones melted into Skeletron's body like a stream of water. The scars on its back disappeared. A quarter of his health was knocked out, and he quickly recovered at this moment. Aside from the loss of a few skeletons and broken bones, the Skeleton King was restored to its prime form right under Sumu's nose. What's even more frustrating is the 4 bone shields reappeared, surrounding Skeletron. Sumu? Hard to top. Seeing this scene, Sumu was speechless. He stepped out and started the phase shift again. But this time his target is no longer Skeleton King, but the Death Castle a few hundred meters away. Attack, there is a shockwave. Defense, with Bone Shield. Auxiliary, with Skeleton Summoning. Add blood, there are bones swallowed. When the strength composition of the Skeleton King was clear, even Sumu had to sigh, worthy of being the king who has ruled the buried land for countless years. The Skeleton King is not an ordinary hard bone. At least, with his current strength enough to fight the Skeleton King, it is very difficult to kill him. But what? The Skeleton King can't be chewed on for the time being, and he can't get the experience points, free points and career templates it represents. Sumu has another choice. In the Castle of Death, there are still a lot of warrior skeletons. A phase shift left the battlefield, and Sumu appeared directly within an arrow tower on the walls of the Castle of the Dead. The bones were cut out with a sword. Click. The skeletal sniper stationed in this arrow tower was immediately shattered and fell to the ground. 1 hit. Without pausing, he continued to rush towards the place where the other warrior skeletons were stationed in the castle. Outside the city, Skeletron is out of anger. When Sumu fled from the battlefield, it felt bad. When the skeleton brothers disappeared one by one in the soul's perception, the Skeleton King was even more furious, rushing towards the Death Castle at the fastest speed. Pity. How can the slow Skeleton King catch up with Sumu, who has a phase shift? By the time Skeleton King arrived at the Castle of Death, the dozen or so warrior skeletons left in the castle had already been killed by Sumu. Click. Cold light flickered. After killing the last warrior skeleton in the castle, Sumu stepped out, activated the phase shift before the Skeleton King arrived, and appeared outside the Castle of Death. A dozen skeletons are a dozen free points. Sumu got a lot this time. But he is not satisfied. Although there are no warrior skeletons under the Skeleton King's command at this time, there are still a large number of elite skeletons and advanced skeletons. Mosquitoes are meat no matter how small they are. Since it's already here, then it's all harvested. After beheading all the warrior skeletons, Sumu aimed at the elite skeletons and advanced skeletons under the Skeleton King. For these skeletons, Sumu didn't need to cut them down. He only needs to wait until these skeletons gather and release a smashing slash. The Skeleton King is incompetent and furious. Running around in vain in and out of the Castle of Death, chasing the figure of Sumu. Where is Sumu? Every phase shift is accompanied by the passing of a large number of elite skeletons and advanced skeletons. Sumu didn't really leave until the magic power stored in the crystal ball had bottomed out and only enough for him to release 2 phase shifts. At this time, Skeletron has become a bear commander. Not to mention warrior skeletons and elite skeletons, even advanced skeletons, were all killed by Sumu. Sumu disappears. Skeletron also lost his chasing target. In this ancient castle full of broken skeletons, the Skeleton King could only roar again and again to vent the boundless anger in his heart. Step out. Appears in the wild thousands of meters away from the Castle of Death. Sumu took stock of the gains this time, and felt extremely overwhelmed in his heart. Although, he still did not cut the Skeleton King to the sword, but compared to the last time he faced the Skeleton King, his record this time was already a fantastic leap. As long as the level is raised again, the four-dimensional attributes will grow again. Until the next time. He has absolute confidence to kill the Skeleton King. Become the new king of this great land of death. Call. Breathing out a long breath in his heart, Sumu slowed down and walked towards the distance. There are more than 1,000 mana points left in the crystal ball, just enough for him to release another phase shift. Compared to the distance between him and Agnes, the distance of several kilometers is insignificant, so it is better to go back slowly. He is not in a hurry. Just right. On the way back, he could also take a good look at this burial place. This is the first time since his rebirth. He observed the land where he was born with such a relaxed and happy mood. Sumu's ease didn't last long. All the way. When he reached a distance of more than 10 kilometers from the Death Castle, he suddenly felt a powerful breath appearing in front of him. That breath. Not weaker than the Skeleton King at all. Is the Skeleton King chasing? As soon as this idea came to mind, it was denied by Sumu. If there is such a fast speed, the Skeleton King will not be incompetent and furious as he sees himself slaughtering all his subordinates. A strange powerhouse appeared in the boneyard. Glancing at the magic value that he could still release a phase shift, Sumu calmed down and hurried in the direction where the breath came from. The last phase shift is enough for him to protect himself. The bone burial ground has become Sumu's reservation site, and a strange powerhouse has appeared on his own site. Sumu always wants to check it out. Soon. On a small dirt bag, Sumu found the source of that breath. As if he was waiting for him, the figure Sumu appeared not only did not leave, but instead walked towards him at a speed that was neither in a hurry nor slow. This is a mage. A mage whose whole body is shrouded in black robes. And even half of his face is covered, only the tip of his nose and mouth are exposed. Although this figure was enveloped by the breath of death, as if it were an undead, Sumu was sure that this was a mage from the human world. A living person who appeared in the bone burial ground. It is no small matter that a heroic mage, no less than the Skeleton King, appears in the burial ground. Especially. It's still alive. When the black-robed mage walked towards this side, Sumu couldn't help clenching the skeleton sword in his hand. Perhaps sensing Sumu's vigilance, when he was still more than 10 meters away, the black-robed mage stopped. Then, the mage, who was shrouded in black robes, gave Sumu a slight salute, and a slightly low voice also came from the hood that came with the robe. Mighty undead lord, death believer Rogress from the outside world. Greetings to you. The voice was low and peaceful, and there didn't seem to be any hostility. But when he heard the self-introduction of the black-robed mage, Sumu's heart set off a shocking wave. Rogers. This black-robed mage is the legendary natural disaster mage in the previous life Rogress. The so-called death believers are those who use the energy of death. Whether it is a necromancer like Rogress or an undead like Sumu, they can all be called death believers. Realizing this, it didn't show on the surface, but Sumu's heart was even more vigilant. As he had speculated before, Rogress at this time did not enter the epic rank, but only the hero rank equal to the lord rank. Arguably, Sumu, who can even resist Skeleton King, seems to have no need to be afraid of Rogress. But don't forget, the Skeleton King is an undead after all, and even if he has advanced wisdom, he is far less clever and cunning than a real human being. And what about Rogress? In the previous life, he was able to step into the epic stage, the legendary stage, and become a natural disaster mage who shook several worlds. There must be his extraordinary qualities. No one knows what hidden cards and tricks he has. In the face of such a natural disaster mage who has proved himself in his previous life, there is no need to be too careful. Besides, Sumu also destroyed one of his altars and slaughtered a zombie clan he created. Of course, these Sumu will not be shown. After Roglus introduced himself, Sumu also exuded a wave of soul fluctuations at the right time. Why, stop. Warrior skeletons have only intermediate intelligence. Sumu showed a higher level of intelligence than a warrior skeleton, but far from reaching the level of human beings, in order to confuse Roglus. Really? After interpreting Sumu's soul fluctuations, Roglus did not doubt, but continued, I was fortunate enough to see the battle between Your Excellency and the Skeleton King, and I was deeply shocked by Your Excellency's power. The Skeleton King is old. Your Excellency is a new powerful undead. If you need, I can assist you to defeat the Skeleton King together and make you the new king of this dead world. The soul fire in his eyes flickered slightly. Sumu appropriately showed his heartbeat. I pay what price? After reading Sumu's soul fluctuations, Roglus breathed a sigh of relief. In his opinion, this is the expression of Sumu's heartbeat. After thinking for a while, Roglus continued, It is my friendship to help you become the new king of this world of death. As long as you become the new king, you allow me to go to the castle of death, to worship and investigate the true meaning of death. For Your Excellency, there will be no loss in this. For good reason. Roglus helped Sumu kill the Skeleton King, and Sumu allowed Roglus to enter the castle of death, to worship. That is to say, there's something in the castle of the dead that attracts Roglus. Aware of this, Sumu didn't say anything, but continued to ask, Why, choose me, not, Skull King. Roglus spread his hands and said helplessly, The castle of death is the center of this world of death. For a death believer, this is equivalent to a holy place in the hearts of pilgrims. If I can, I don't want to be an enemy of a strong man like the Skeleton King. However, the Skeleton King has always regarded the castle of death as a forbidden place, and no one can approach it except it and its subordinates. In order to pursue the true meaning of death, I had to cooperate with a powerful undead like Your Excellency. The reason is even stronger. It not only revealed the reason why Roglus did not find Skeleton King to cooperate, but also appropriately expressed the meaning of helping Sumu to ascend to the new king and helping himself with the power of Sumu. Both benefit. If Sumu is really just a skeleton of a warrior level, it seems that there is really no need to refuse. Slightly silent. The soul fire in the eye socket is also constantly flickering. Sumu seems to be thinking about working with Roglus. Roglus didn't urge either, but just stood there and waited silently. Not enough. After a long time, Sumu's soul wave spread again. Yes. I help you. No. You help me. I become stronger. I don't need help. Of course. With a slight smile on the face shrouded under the hood, Roglus said, As long as Your Excellency continues to grow, there will eventually be a day to defeat Skeletron. This cooperation is indeed my own advantage. Not like this. Talking. Roglus took out a black crystal ball out of nowhere and smiled. As long as Your Excellency can help me realize my wish to go to the Death Castle to worship, this crystal ball is my thank you gift to Your Excellency. Fist-sized crystal ball. There are also strands of black mist floating constantly. When he saw this crystal ball, the soul fire in Sumu's eyes throbbed fiercely. This crystal ball. It's the same as the crystal ball he got from the dark altar before Roglus' crystal ball. Thus, Sumu also understood why Roglus was able to find himself. The crystal ball he obtained has indeed been eroded, and all the marks belonging to Roglus have been removed by the erosion talent. But what he didn't expect was that there was not only one crystal ball in Roglus, but two. There is a natural connection between these two crystal balls. A few dozen meters away, Sumu could clearly see that a wisp of indiscernible tiny black mist emanated from the crystal ball, pointing in the direction where Sumu was. If Sumu took out the crystal ball that melted into his body, it should be the same. Two crystal balls. Sumu was moved. A single crystal ball is of dark gold quality. If 2 crystal balls are together, the quality will probably be upgraded to epic quality. Not to mention that with the improvement of spiritual attributes, the effect of the crystal ball will become smaller and smaller for Sumu. Not to mention the crystal ball's role in storing magic power, the crystal ball's ability to absorb, store, and purify the breath of death alone makes Sumu a must for this crystal ball. Because the crystal ball with an improved rank means that he can spend a shorter time cultivating a large number of undead in the elite rank and even the warrior rank. Breathe out silently. Sumu was slightly silent. Rogris knew that he had destroyed the Dark Altar and that he had taken the first crystal ball. He didn't mention it. However, he took out another crystal ball, nominally as a gift for himself, but in fact it was to tempt him to deal with the Skeleton King with him and help him enter the Castle of Death. Either Roglis has absolute certainty that he will regain the crystal ball after all this is done, either the secret hidden in the Death Castle, let Rogris enter it even at the cost of a set of props that is likely to be epic equipment. Whatever the possibility, as long as he agrees, Rogris will not lose. After a long time, Sumu has a decision. The soul fire in the eye sockets flickered slightly, and his soul fluctuation spread again. Yes, 15 days later, here, waiting for you. 15 days? Rogris nodded slightly and said with a chuckle, it just so happens that I also need to make some preparations. Then, mighty undead your excellency, in 15 days, Rogris is looking forward to your arrival. Agreement reached. Just under Sumu's gaze, Roglis saluted slightly again, his figure shrouded in the black robe exuded a slight energy fluctuation, and then dissipated like a phantom. Rogers. After it was confirmed that Rogris really left, Sumu's emotions calmed down. He didn't expect that his first contact with Rogris would unfold in this way. To cooperate. Whether it's the experience points, free points, and career templates represented by Skeleton King, or another crystal ball in the hands of Rogers, he is bound to get it. Even if this cooperation is extremely dangerous, he cannot give up. The reason for setting the time after 15 days is that Sumu wants to continue to improve his level and strength through these 15 days. Rodriguez is strong. More dangerous than Skeletron. But as long as Sumu's strength is strong enough, even if Roglis has any other thoughts after this cooperation, he can break the game with his strength and swallow all the benefits he has obtained. As for Roglis' previous observations, Sumu didn't take it to heart. Every spellcaster in the second world has similar telemetry spells that can only spot see, not track. Want to silently track and observe Sumu in the vast burial ground. Not to mention that Rogris is still only a hero, even if he steps into an epic rank, it is very difficult to achieve. For the next 15 days, Sumu began a second frantic expansion. Running around all the time. As long as the skeleton corps finds the elite skeletons, Sumu will go to enslave them, make them his own skeleton brothers, and form a new skeleton corps. The hunting range of the Bone Legion gradually spreads from the central area and inner layer of the bone burial ground to the periphery. The growth of the Bone Legion means they hunt more skeletons. Hunting more skeletons means more experience points for Sumu. On the third day after the appointment with Rogris, Sumu's level was raised from level 38 to level 39. On the seventh day after the appointment with Rogris, Sumu's level was raised from level 39 to level 40. Officially stepping into the level that a warrior rank skeleton should have. Starting at level 40, Sumu requires more experience per level. But the ever-expanding core of skeletons also brought him more experience points. On the 11th day, Sumu's level was raised from level 40 to level 41. Day 14. The night before the appointment with Rogris, Sumu's level was finally raised from level 41 to level 42. 14 days. The level has been increased by 4 levels. Even the 4-dimensional attributes of Sumu have skyrocketed again. Rogris would never have imagined that Sumu would undergo another earth-shaking change in the power of Sumu in just 15 days. In his impression, the appearance of every high-level undead was accumulated over a long period of time. Because of this, only then would he rest assured to make a 15-day agreement with Sumu. Soon. Night passed. The time that Sumu and Rogris agreed on finally arrived. The next day. It was still early, and Sumu appeared at the appointed place with a skeleton army, waiting for the arrival of Rogris. Of course. This corps of skeletons is just making up the numbers. Most of the skeleton army under his command is still fighting in various places of the boneyard, providing him with a steady stream of experience points. Even Agnes, the Dark Knight, was transferred by Sumu to a place far away from the Death Castle, so as not to be discovered by Rogers. Half a month. The level has been raised from level 38 to level 42, and Sumu's four-dimensional attributes have skyrocketed by nearly a third. Name, Sumu. Race, Undead Race Skeleton. Template, Warrior Profession Template Dark Warrior. Level 42. Status, Health 32450, Magic 6660. Attributes, Strength 1718, Agility 1383, Constitution 1745, Spirit 666. Talent, Erosion, the only talent. Skills, Death / Boss Skill, Air / Boss Skill, Phase Shift, Boss Skill. Free points, 22 points. The skyrocketing four-dimensional attributes also made Sumu's combat power skyrocket. Facing the Skeleton King again. I am afraid that without the help of Rogers, Sumu will be able to kill him. Of course. Not necessary. Since they had agreed to deal with the Skeleton King together with Rogris, it was natural to ask Rogris to do something. Besides, no one knew what would happen after the Skeleton King beheaded. Sumu didn't mind retaining a bit of his strength, and when that moment came, he fought back brazenly. Time flies. When the gloomy sky gradually brightened, Sumu felt the breath of Rogris again. He looked into the distance, and the figure of Rogris, covered by a black robe, gradually emerged from a distance and approached here. I haven't seen each other for half a month, and Rogris's feelings for Sumu have not changed. But Sumu knew. With this half-month, Rogris must be ready to fight. This time he is more difficult to deal with than the last time. Sumu is observing Rogris. Rogris is also watching Sumu. Unlike Sumu, Rogris was a little shocked. There are more than 3,000 skeleton legions, which is normal. Compared with Sumu's strength enough to fight the Skeleton King, not only are there not many skeleton legions with this number, but they are somewhat less. What shocked him was the aura emanating from Sumu's body. Compared with the first time we met, the breath emanating from Sumu's body at this time made even his heart skip a beat. Get stronger again? Or, are there adventures that I haven't discovered yet in this burial place? A haze flashed in the eyes hidden under the hood, but Rogris's voice did not change in the slightest. Now that we're ready, let's get started. After today, Your Excellency is the new king of this dead world. Nodding slightly, Sumu thought about it, and drove the corps of skeletons and Rogris to rush towards the Death Castle more than 10 kilometers away. Soon, they arrived near the Castle of Death. Let the corps of skeletons form a formation outside the Castle of Death. Sumu and Rogris walked forward one after the other. Sumu stopped just over 100 meters away from the gate of Death Castle. He glanced at Rogers. After Rogris nodded, Sumu stepped forward again, frantically burst out his breath, and announced his arrival to the Skeleton King. Roar. Next moment, with a roar full of anger, a huge figure rushed out of the Castle of Death and appeared in front of Sumu and Rogris. It was the Skeleton King. Appearing again, Skeleton King's eyes only stopped on Rogris's body, and he was completely attracted by Sumu. It naturally does not forget Sumu. It was this despicable skeleton, who had not even reached the rank of lord, that challenged its authority over and over again, and even killed many skeletons under its command, turning it from the ruler of the buried land into a bare commander. For Skeleton King, this is an absolute shame. So, After rushing out of the Castle of Death, the first thing Skeleton King did was to carry the warhammer in both hands and rush towards Sumu. "You, help." Exuding a wave of soul fluctuations, he said to Rogress. Sumu also carried the skeleton blade and rushed towards the Skeleton King. Boom! The earth tossed. Violent shock waves spread in all directions. When only a few dozen meters away from Sumu, the Skeleton King brazenly released his first skill. At this time, Sumu had already appeared behind the Skeleton King, and the skeleton blade burst out with 10 dark sword beams, slashing towards the Skeleton King's back. As always, when the sword light hit, 4 shields of bones emerged from Skeleton King's body, blocking Sumu's first attack. At this time, Rogress also shot. Curse, shield corruption. It is said that assistance is assistance. When Rogress's first skill was released, an obscure light emerged, shrouding Skeletron in it. The 3 bone shields remaining around its body weakened at a speed visible to the naked eye. Although it will not shatter and disappear, its defense ability has been weakened by as much as 3 layers. Death cut. With Rogress's assist, Sumu was not idle either. The second phase shift appeared on Skeletron's side, and the death cut was cut out for the second time. This time, just 1 hit. He tore apart the 2 bone shields on Skeletron. Roar. With an angry roar, the Skeleton King clearly sensed the role Rogress played in this battle. After taking a blow from Sumu and consuming 2 shields of bones, the wise Skeleton King gave up on Sumu and attacked Rogress with a charge. If you're enjoying my content, please consider donating a coffee or checking out my shirts on TeePublic. The distance of tens of meters is fleeting in the blink of an eye. When it was only a dozen meters away from Rogress, the Skeleton King jumped and rushed towards Rogress. Its 2-handed warhammer is raised overhead. The power of the whole body is poured into it. In combination with the terrifying impact of the huge body falling, the power of the hammer that the Skeleton King is about to hit is even far beyond the attacking skills. Rogress didn't move. Still preparing for the next auxiliary skill, as if I didn't see the Skeleton King attacking and the terrifying warhammer that was about to come down. At this time, Sumu appeared. He took 1 step and crossed a distance of dozens of meters, blocking Rogress's body. He is the main offense, the main defense, and Rogress's assistant. This is the agreement made by the 2 on the way. Now that the Skeleton King is attacking, Sumu naturally has to block in front. The warhammer fell. The skeleton sword in Sumu's hand also slashed out, facing the 2-handed warhammer that fell. Boom! The harsh sound of gold and iron symphony sounded. The heavy 2-handed warhammer landed on the skeleton sword. Even with all the strength of Sumu's body, when the 2-handed warhammer was bombarded with unparalleled power, the skeleton blade was bombarded with a huge arc, as if it would break at any time. Sumu's legs sunk deeply into the ground. Finally, Sumu still took the attack from the Skeleton King. At this time, Rogress also finally completed the second skill. I saw the staff in his hand gently lift, and a dark green light burst out, shrouding the Skeleton King who had just landed in it. Immediately, the Skeleton King felt a wave of weakness, as if some imperceptible presence had drawn some of its power away. Curse, weakened power. Skeletron's power is weakened by the curse of power, but Sumu's power is in full bloom. With the attack just now, the Skeleton King was blocked by him, not to mention now. Pulling out the skeleton blade like lightning, Sumu jumped, but instead slashed towards the Skeleton King. Knife like lightning. Fierce training. With that level 4 strength growth, Sumu's current strength attribute is no less than that of Skeleton King. When Skeleton King was cursed by Rogress, and part of his power was taken away, Sumu has already gained the upper hand. Cut out. Even if the Skeleton King blocked the knife with the warhammer in his hand, his body was shaken by the enormous force contained in the knife, and he couldn't help but take a step back. Before it could recover, Sumu's next attack struck again. Boom! 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 The dense explosion spread far and wide. Every time Sumu made a cut, the Skeleton King took a step back. Suffocated. Anger. Uncomfortable. Has the Skeleton King ever encountered such a situation? After blocking Sumu's attack again, the Skeleton King roared wildly and slammed the warhammer with both hands on the ground, creating a violent shock wave, trying to force Sumu away in this way. Sumu did leave. He stepped out and appeared behind the Skeleton King, and the dark sword light burst out again, hitting the Skeleton King's back. Whoa! The last bone shield shattered. The remaining few light blades were not blocked, and they slashed firmly on the back of the Skeleton King, leaving a few terrifying scars on its body. Skeleton King's health also dropped by a fifth at this moment. Roar. Second time injured. The Skeleton King roared, dropped Sumu again, and rushed towards the skeleton army that Sumu brought not far away. Stop it. Rogers was in a hurry and screamed. At this time, Sumu's mind moved, and he directed the archers and spellcasters in the skeleton army to focus fire and attack the Skeleton King with arrows and fireballs. Elite-level attacks, even arrow rain and ghost fireballs, can cause extremely limited damage to Skeleton King. With the constant attacks, the Skeleton King rushed into the core of skeletons. Next moment. Skeleton devouring skill activated. Large swathes of skeletons and broken bones were swallowed by Skeletron and merged into its body. While restoring Skeleton's health, it also began to repair its bone shield. The undead are indeed the undead, stupid. With an angry curse in his heart, Rogris had to start preparing for the next curse skill. He could see that this strange undead, Sumu, was very strong and had a strong fighting instinct, but its intelligence was far from getting rid of the stupid appearance of the undead. If you want to kill the Skeleton King and enter the Castle of Death, it is very difficult to rely on this strange undead alone. Heart ruthless. Rogris exuded violent magic fluctuations, and released 2 curse skills in a row, shrouding Skeleton King's body. Curse, stamina weakened. Curse, resistance weakened. Stamina weakening, as the name suggests, reduces Skeletron's stamina. The resistance has been weakened, but it is the Skeleton King's attack resistance that has been reduced. When the resistance is reduced, Skeletron's physical defense and magic defense will be greatly reduced, and each attack of Sumu can also deal more damage. Unleashing 2 skills one after another, Rogris consumed a lot. But this time, Sumu finally did not let Rogris down again. He appeared next to Skeleton King again, and the black light blades that erupted from the skeleton mob slashed on Skeleton King's body. Boom. Whoa. The bone shields on all sides are broken one after another. The Skeleton King, who had just recovered once again, appeared under Sumu's sword again in an unsuspecting state. PS1, the protagonist and Rogris are calculating each other. It's not that the protagonist is really stupid. Death cut. The pitch-black sword glow erupted. Losing the defense of the bone shield, this time the death cut finally completely cut on the body of the Skeleton King. Bear the curse of resistance, the damage Sumu's death cut this time to Skeleton King has increased by as much as 1/3. When those 10 jet-black light blades slashed on Skeleton King one after another, its health dropped like a pouring waterfall. It fell directly to about 1/3. The Skeleton King was furious. It doesn't care to fight back. Instead, he activated his boss skill at the next moment, Skeleton Summoning. As before, the ground turned, and skeletons were summoned out, crawling out of the mud, and guarding the Skeleton King. And these summoned skeletons have also become the materials for the Skeleton King to restore his own health and bone shield again. That's why Sumu and Rogris worked together. Both have the ability to fight the Skeleton King head-on. But at best, they were able to cripple Skeletron. When the Skeleton King summoned the core of skeletons and recovered from the crippled state to the perfect state again and again. Even heroic professions like Sumu and Rogris were quite helpless. Fortunately, this time is different. Sumu focuses on attack and defense, and Rogris focuses on support and weakening. The combination of the two has an effect of 1 + 1 greater than 2, so that they can kill even the Skeleton King who can continuously recover. Phase shift. Displaced once again, it appeared in the core of bones, and the smashing slash exploded, and the dark red blade of light continued to spread, tearing the core of bones summoned by the Skeleton King at an unimaginable speed. Once. Twice. 3 times. After 3 full bursts of skills, this skeleton army that was enough to restore Skeleton King several times was killed by Sumu. No way no money. Although, it still has a bone shield on its body as a defense, although, its health has once again returned to its full value. But the Skeleton King has undoubtedly reached a dead end. Boom. 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 Surrounded by several layers of curses, the combat power has dropped by several %, but the Skeleton King is still undiminished. It carried the warhammer in both hands, leaving deep footprints one by one on the ground, and walked towards Sumu step by step. When it was only a few dozen meters away from Sumu, the Skeleton King roared wildly, and rushed towards Sumu again. Its mana has been exhausted. The Bone Shield cannot be released again, nor can the Bone Legion be summoned again. But it is the king of the boneyard. Even at the end of the road, it will use its last strength to leave its own mark on the enemy. Boom. Death slicing erupts. After tearing the Bone Shield to shreds in an instant and leaving several huge scars on Skeleton King's body, Sumu rushed in the direction of Skeleton King's attack. Skills are discarded. In this final battle, Sumu and the Skeleton King are back in pure strength. A knife. A hammer. Sumu's attack speed is much faster than Skeleton King, and after being cursed, Skeleton King is suppressed by Sumu in terms of strength. The result is, every attack of the Skeleton King was blocked by Sumu, but the skeleton sword in Sumu's hand slashed firmly on the Skeleton King's body. Every time the skeleton sword is cut out, they all left a huge scar on the Skeleton King's body. Senhan's blade buys a flash. All accompanied by a substantial drop in Skeleton King's health. A knife. 2 knives. 5 knives. 10 knives. When Sumu made the last cut, the Skeleton King's health was finally cleared. The huge body fell to the ground. This Skeleton King, who ruled the place where the bones were buried for countless years, almost broke through the limit of the Lord's rank, was finally beheaded by him. From this moment on, Sumu can step on the corpse of the Skeleton King and announce that he is the new king of the boneyard. You killed the Skeleton King. You gain 100,000 experience points. You beheaded the Lord of the Boneyard. You. The blockbuster information was refreshed from the property panel. Sumu just glanced at it, but ignored it. Putting away the skeleton sword, Sumu bent down, dragged the huge body of the Skeleton King, and walked towards Rogris step by step. It wasn't until Rogris was approaching that his soul fluctuations spread. Complete the promise. The ability, can't, release. The number of skill releases has been exhausted. This is what Sumu is trying to convey. After understanding the words of Sumu's soul, Roglis's face hidden in the hood flashed a smirk, but his tone remained unchanged. Don't worry, Your Excellency the new king. The Skeleton King is dead, and the rest is nothing to worry about. If you encounter another enemy, just leave it to me. Subsequently, the two figures walked towards the Castle of Death one after the other. During this process, Sumu was still dragging the huge corpse of the Skeleton King. Although he didn't understand the meaning of Sumu's actions, Rogris didn't ask any further questions. At this time, he couldn't wait to enter the Death Castle. Can't wait to get the secret in Death Castle that he has coveted for a long time. The Skeleton King was beheaded, and nothing was left in the Castle of Death. Perhaps it was Sumu's omission of cleaning up the Castle of Death last time, or perhaps it was the Castle of Death that gave birth to new skeletons in the past half-month. In short, after Sumu and Rogris stepped into the Castle of Death, every now and then they encountered skeletons rushing out of every corner. These skeletons are only advanced skeletons at the highest nature. During this process, Sumu did not take action, and all these newly emerged skeletons were handed over to Rogris to solve. Thus, Sumu also has a deeper understanding of Rogris. This necromancer who seems to be converted to curse skills is not without combat ability, but compared with the obscure and powerful curse skills, his attack skills are relatively weak, not enough to bring too much threat to Skeleton King. Entering the Castle of Death, Rogris did not stop. After a little thought, he took Sumu towards the rear of the Death Castle. After arriving at the enclosed space, where Sumu killed the Skeleton Warden, Rogris blasted open the prison gate that had been guarded by the Skeleton Warden with a bone spear, and walked towards the underground prison. Dark. Obscure. When stepping into the prison, Sumu clearly felt that the breath of death here was stronger and purer than in the Death Castle. All the way down. After walking 3 floors, Sumu and Rogris reached the end of the prison stairs. At this time, a rusted but extremely thick iron door appeared in front of him. The secret that Rogris wants to explore is behind this iron gate. At the same time, Sumu also clearly felt that there seemed to be an endless and incomparably pure aura of death gushing out from behind the iron gate and spreading in all directions. Your Excellency the new king. Please take action and open this door. Standing in front of the rusty iron gate, Rogris pleaded. Sumu did not refuse. At this time, not only Rogris wanted to get the secret behind the iron gate, but Sumu's curiosity was also mobilized. He also wanted to see what was hidden behind the iron gate, and wanted to see what was there. It can give birth to the endless breath of death, turning the huge burial place into a world of death. Step forward. The bones were cut out with a sword. Boom! With a deafening roar and a large piece of flying dust, Sumu directly fired his sword and blasted open the iron gate with incomparable strength. Take time. More and purer breath of death poured out from behind the broken iron gate. The pure breath of death that rushed to his face even made Sumu have the urge to cheer. It seems that every part and every bone of his body is constantly growing. The door opened. The scene inside also caught Sumu's eyes. This is a prison. Far more spacious than the prison on the upper 3 floors. Around this prison, which is more than 100 square meters in diameter, there are a large number of rusted iron tables, chairs, and tools. There are many torture tools such as butcher knives, iron hooks, mirrors, and chains. Except for the torture tools, it is blood. A long time has passed, and no amount of blood has dried up and deteriorated. But looking at the black marks on the ground and walls, Mu can imagine that a long time ago, countless creatures were tortured here, bled here, and died here. Perhaps this is not a prison at all, but a slaughterhouse or a testing ground. The people imprisoned in the 3-story prison above should not be criminals, but innocent creatures. One by one is about to be dragged into this slaughterhouse, and the living materials will be subjected to inhumane experiments. Of course, that's not all. In fact, all that Sumu observed, tables and chairs, torture instruments, skeletons, blood, only occupied a very small part of this vast space. In the center of this slaughterhouse, stands an altar. An altar that, although small, looks almost identical to the dark altar that Sumu once destroyed in the Canyon of the Dead. In contrast to this, on the altar that Rogris built, stood a head of zombies that he transformed. On this small altar, there were broken skulls one by one. And above this black altar less than 2 meters high, there is a pitch-black hole suspended. The endless breath of death flowed out from this hole and was bound by the black altar. After flowing through the hundreds of thousands of skulls on the altar, the mist-like aura of death poured out from the various holes in the skulls and spread. The altar of death. Everything described in that notebook is true. Taking a few steps out, he entered the slaughterhouse. For the first time, Rogris's originally low and peaceful voice revealed an undisguised excitement. The altar of death is the name of this black altar. At the same time, the dark altar that Rogris built was also completely based on a notebook, imitating this altar of death. Following behind Rogris, Sumu also entered the slaughterhouse. Looking at the black altar, Sumu couldn't help but a wave of soul waves spread out. What is the function of the altar? An altar that always exudes the breath of pure death is naturally invaluable. Just staying in this room can make the undead grow and evolve countless times faster. Only Rogris is human. Even if his profession is a necromancer, he is still alive after all. Bathed in such a pure breath of death for a long time, it will not take long for him to be corroded, transforming from a heroic necromancer into a new undead. For example, Corpse Witch. Perhaps too excited, ignoring the existence of Sumu. It was not until the soul wave emanating from Sumu spread out that Rogris suddenly woke up. But he didn't explain. With a chuckle, Rogris took out the crystal ball from his storage space and said to Sumu, "Sorry, I ignored His Excellency the new king. Your Excellency the new king helped me defeat the Skeleton King and found this legendary altar, and I am very grateful. This is the crystal ball that was promised to His Excellency the new king. The altar of death is extremely precious, and it can be said to be the sacred relic of death believers. Your Excellency killed the Skeleton King, and this altar of death should belong to you. However, I have a small request. Please, Your Excellency new king, allow me to do some research here. 3 days later, I will leave here, and everything here will belong to His Excellency the new king." Following these words, Rogris handed over the crystal ball. His voice was full of excitement and pleading. His purpose was really this death altar, he just wanted to study here for a few days. No accident? Unable to help, Sumu took the crystal ball that he was bound to win. Next moment. Mutants. Just when Sumu grabbed the second crystal ball, countless runes burst out from the crystal ball and turned into tiny chains wrapped around Sumu's body. In almost no time, the runes were printed on Sumu's skeleton armor, binding him firmly. Seal. Imprisoned. Weaken. Bondage. At a glance, more than 10 kinds of runes flashed from the crystal ball and acted on Sumu's body. At this time, this crystal ball, which is already full of magic power, is like a source of magic, maintaining the operation of more than 10 kinds of magic circles, and also firmly sealing Sumu in place, unable to move. Not to mention an attack, except that his thinking is not affected, Sumu at this time can't even release his skills. Figure poor dagger C. From the very beginning, Sumu and Rogris had no good intentions. Rogris wants to use the power of Sumu to defeat the Skeleton King, find this legendary death altar, achieve his goal, and harvest Sumu, the new king. By the way, is it not the case with Sumu? He hopes to get the second Logris crystal ball, and also hopes to use the power of Logris to kill the Skeleton King, and he hopes to erase the potential threat of Logris. Being sealed in place by more than 10 kinds of rune formations, Sumu was relieved. He did not rush to break the seal, but remained in a bound state, beating his soul fire frantically, emitting waves of soul fluctuations. Roglis ignored Sumu. After checking the crystal ball and confirming that Sumu was indeed sealed, and there was no possibility of escaping from the seal, his attention returned to the altar of death. The altar of death. The rift to the plane of death, normal depravity, can only be transformed into a corpse which with my rank. With the addition of the undead transformation technique, I am 80% sure that I will be transferred from a necromancer to a lich and gain a long life. But not enough. The lich is too fragile. Only the great lich. Can I continue to grow after being transformed into an undead? Living corpses, walking corpses, zombies, skeletal knights, skeletons, these undead have no secrets to me. The death altar is in hand, plus the aura contained in the Skeleton King and this strange undead. I have at least 60% confidence that I can break through the restrictions of the rank and transfer to the Great Lich of the epic rank. 60% confidence is not safe, try this body first. After solving the hidden danger of Sumu, Rogris has no worries. He devoted himself to the study of the death altar, and even couldn't help muttering to be born, exposing his plans, intentions, and purposes. As for Sumu, it is clear. A living undead is more valuable to study than a dead undead. Now that Sumu has been completely sealed, Rogris naturally wants to dig out more information from Sumu, which also gives him greater confidence to transfer from a heroic necromancer to an epic rank. Great Lich. Only. Rogress, who was completely immersed in his study of the Altar of Death, did not see it. After hearing all this, Sumu, who should have been completely sealed and unable to move at all, grabbed the bone palm of the crystal ball. Suddenly clenched. Sumu has been on the lookout for Rogress since the collaboration began. In the battle with Skeletron, Sumu did not retain his strength. Every time he fights with the Skeleton King, he goes all out. What he kept. It's just the number of times the skill is released. Yes. After beheading Skeletron, Sumu told Rogress that he had run out of skill casts, and in fact he still had 5 death cuts and 6 phase shifts. As a necromancer, Rogress knows enough about the undead. Not to mention the warrior rank. Even a high-rank undead of the Lord rank like the Skeleton King is only equivalent to a foolish and upright human being who will not lie about this skill. He could not have imagined that Sumu had the same level of intelligence as him. He couldn't have imagined that Sumu had hidden his strength in this battle. Rogress is plotting Sumu. Isn't Sumu plotting against Rogress? The only thing he didn't expect was that Rogress didn't turn his face directly, but embedded more than 10 seal runes into the crystal ball, using his desire for the crystal ball as a bait to imprison him. Fortunately, it's a crystal ball. When Rogress thought that the crystal ball had completely imprisoned Sumu, his chance also came. The soul fire in his eyes flickered slightly. Sumu activated his talent while Rogress devoted himself to the study of the Death Altar. The seal rune seals Sumu's body and his skills, but it's not enough to seal Sumu's talent. His ossuary had grabbed the crystal ball. Mind a move. Erosion, talent activated. The unknown energy poured out from Sumu's body and began to rapidly corrode the crystal ball. In just a few breaths, the unknown energy eroded all the runes in the crystal ball, and also invalidated the dozen or so seal runes blessed on Sumu. But he left a mark on the crystal ball belonging to Rogress to prevent the necromancer from being disturbed. Silently freed from the seal, Sumu grabbed the second crystal ball, incorporated it into his body again, and slowly pulled out the skeleton sword. Rogers didn't notice. At this time, he was taking out crystals filled with souls and soul fires from the storage space and placing them in front of the altar. Without realizing it, the danger is approaching. The soul fire in his eyes flickered slightly, and Sumu slowly raised the bone sword. Next moment, 2 sharp edges flashed from midair, and Rogress's 2 arms were directly cut off by Sumu and fell to the ground. Necromancers are people too. 2 arms were cut off, and even Rogress couldn't help screaming. Only. Before Rogress could react to counterattack, Sumu had already stepped forward and grabbed the head of the necromancer with a large bone grasp. Erosion, talent activated. A steady stream of unknown energy began to flow out of Sumu's body into the necromancer's body, eroding the necromancer's body. Rogers was horrified. His arms were cut off, and it was difficult for him to use his staff to quickly release his skills. Similarly, without his arms, it is difficult for him to take out the props stored in his storage space to confront the enemy. How do you? Rogers was horrified. He couldn't figure out how the strange undead escaped from the seal. To know. The seal in the crystal ball consumed a lot of his energy and precious materials, and among the more than 10 kinds of seals, there were even seal runes specially designed for space transfer skills. Not to mention an undead of the warrior rank, even if it is an existence that has stepped into the epic rank, if he does not check the trick for a while, he will be sealed for half an hour. Sumu has no answer. He concentrated his energy to speed up the output of the unknown energy, and controlled the unknown energy to erode Rogress as soon as possible. From body to head. When the unknown energy eroded Rogress' body, the necromancer was only horrified. When the unknown energy completely eroded his body and began to spread towards his head, Rogress's expression was not only horrified, but terrified. Unknown energy enters the brain. Sumu's original intention was to try to see if he could enslave this necromancer and turn him into his younger brother. Not to mention the future Sky Destruction Mage, the series of curse skills that Rogris showed during the battle with Skeleton King alone allowed him to bring great help to Sumu. But when the erosion of Roglis' brain started, Sumu makes an unexpected discovery. Saw him Rogris' memory fragment. Not just memory fragments, Sumu even saw the process of Rogris learning various skills in the countless flashing pictures. Sumu is overjoyed. As a monster, what he lacks most is not attributes or experience, but skills. As long as he has enough free points, he can evolve every skill he acquires into a boss skill. And every boss skill will undoubtedly greatly enhance his combat power. The picture continues as Sumu erodes. There is also a lot of information refreshed on his attribute panel. The picture of learning skills in the front is just a flash, but the picture that appears in the back is the process of Rogris getting a notebook and learning necromancer skills and undead transformation from it. In the follow-up pictures, Sumu saw how he transferred to a necromancer, how to learn the skills of the curse department, and how to mutilate the missing people, just to improve his death magic. Even from this picture, Sumu saw how Rogris killed the residents of an entire village, transformed them into zombies, and built the entire process of the Dark Altar in the Valley of the Dead. Sumu, who was immersed in the picture, did not notice Rogris' expression. Rogers was going crazy at this point. As a cold energy entered his body, he felt that he had lost control of his body. This is not the most important thing. The most important is, he felt that the strange undead in front of him seemed to be looking through his memory. Manipulating the soul was originally the area where necromancers were best at. But the necromancer of the legendary rank cannot understand all the secrets of a soul. Under the erosion of that gloomy energy, Rogris felt horrified that in front of this strange undead, he didn't seem to have any secrets to keep. Keep going. His biggest secret will be fully understood by this strange undead, and it will be unobstructed. Anger. Panic. Despair. Many negative emotions emerged from his face, and in the end Roglis gritted his teeth, and a hint of determination flashed in his gloomy eyes. Next moment, when the cold energy was about to deepen into the depths of his soul, boom! The necromancer's head exploded. The emaciated body without his head fell to the ground, and Sumu, who was still immersed in looking at his memories, was a little dazed. Self-destruct? Or are there other servitude contracts hidden in the necromancer's soul? It was unbelievable that the future heavenly destruction mage died in his own hands. Sumu couldn't help but open his attribute panel. At the bottom of his attribute panel, several pieces of information have been refreshed. Enslavement failed. You killed the avatar of Rogris. You have gained 90,000 experience points. You got the skilled bone prisoner. You have acquired the skill fragment Undead Transformation Living Corpse. You have acquired the skill fragment Undead Transformation Walking Dead. You have acquired the skill fragment Undead Transformation Zombie. You got the full skill Undead Transformation. Isn't it Rogers who died? Or, not the body of Rogris? Soul fire flickered. Sumu thoughtful. Hearing what Rogris said to himself before the death altar, combined with the many legends of Rogris in his previous life, he had a speculation in his heart. Perhaps Rogris in his previous life had two bodies. A body and incarnation. With the help of the player's power in the previous life, Rogris defeated the Skeleton King and was able to enter this underground prison and obtain the Altar of Death. Then, he successfully transformed his own body into an epic-ranked archlich. The Great Lich is the real body, and the Necromancer is just an identity that Rogris puts out for the world to see. This also explains why in the previous life, Rogris, who was just a necromancer, was able to command countless undead armies, and made a record that even many high-level undead who were also epic rank were difficult to do. If Rogris's body is a big lich, everything is not difficult to understand. In Second World, when an NPC deliberately conceals his identity, the system will not automatically prompt the player 407. Either, the player needs to discover the clues and find the hidden information, or, just like Sumu, directly erode or kill it to get the exact information. The natural disaster mage in the previous life is unmatched, and naturally no one can discover his true identity. Pity. It's not the body of Rogris that appears here. I also don't see from memory how Rogris got a second body and turned it into a necromancer. Sadly, Sumu didn't take it to heart. Since Rogris has not yet been transferred to the Great Lich, it means that he is still in the heroic rank. With Sumu's current strength, there is no need to take it to heart as long as you pay attention. He cares more about his harvest this time. 2 skills. Bone Prison is a control skill that consumes mana to summon a railing composed of several bones from the ground, trapping the enemy in place. As long as the bones are not broken, the enemy cannot move. Undead Transformation is an auxiliary skill. To be precise, the function of this skill is to analyze the undead, obtain the information of the undead, and then transform and upgrade the existing undead. The zombie family Sumu encountered in the Valley of the Dead was transformed by Rogris through this skill. As an auxiliary skill, Undead Transformation can't directly improve Sumu's combat power, but when his strength grows, this skill allows him to transform his undead younger brother and grow his own power. In the long term, the value of Undead Transformation is no less than the combat skills such as death cutting and air smashing. After reading the 2 newly acquired skills, Sumu took out Logris Crystal Ball. Except for the imprint above, Sumu placed 2 identical crystal balls together. Don't need him to do anything. When placed together, wisps of black mist extended from the crystal ball and wrapped around another crystal ball. Seam. The 2 crystal balls will fuse together at any time. A move in my heart. Sumu picked up a crystal ball and gently placed it towards the other one, just under his watch. The 2 crystal balls really fused together. Name, Soul Crystal. Quality, Epic. Category, Props. Function, absorb, store, and automatically purify the energy stored in the crystal ball. The current number of stored energy, 100,000 points. Item description, this is a crystal ball that can store any energy. Perhaps, you can store your soul in it to gain immortality? Really? When the 2 crystal balls are fused together, their ABV quality is also upgraded from dark gold quality to epic quality. The function of the crystal ball has not changed, but the number of energy points that can be stored has increased tenfold. Soul Crystal. Looking at the prop description of the newly born crystal ball, a thought suddenly rose in Sumu's heart. It is said that every lich will entrust his soul in the soul box to achieve the purpose of immortality and immortality. This soul crystal, isn't it the soul box of Rogris in the previous life? Silently complained in my heart. Sumu picked up the upgraded crystal ball and continued to integrate it into his body. Subsequently, Sumu looked at the other crystals that Rogris had left behind. This is an ordinary crystal, only capable of carrying soul and soul fire. But, as the soul and soul fire carefully collected by a heroic necromancer, the value of these crystals should not be underestimated. When the unknown energy formed by the erosion talent entered the crystal, several system prompts were refreshed on Sumu's attribute panel again. You have obtained the transfer information for the elite profession template Bone Knight. You have obtained the transfer information of the warrior occupation template Flame Ghost. You have obtained the job transfer information of the mentor job template Fortress Guard. Corresponding to the hero rank. You have obtained the transfer information of the mentor's occupation template Frost Archer. You have obtained the transfer information of Lord Profession template Death Knight. You have obtained the transfer information of Lord Profession template Lich. Soul and Soul Fire. For Sumu, it was career change information. Most of the job transfer information is of no use to Sumu, but the transfer information of the Death Knight and the Lich is invaluable to Sumu. Even if it is limited by race, Sumu can't directly transfer to Death Knight or Lich. He can also use it as a material and integrate it into his next professional template. With Skeleton King's job template, Sumu now has 3 Lord-level job templates. If he wants, using these 3 Lord occupation templates as materials, Sumu can fuse his own Lord occupation template at any time, from warrior rank to Lord rank. But not in a hurry for now. Wei Sea Village. Sumu came to the Skeleton King's corpse and began to erode this huge corpse. You have absorbed the essence of the bones, and your body has become stronger. Your strength has increased by 252 points. Your agility has increased by 12. Your physique has increased by 145 points. Your spirit increased by 34 points. You have obtained the transfer information of the Lord Profession template Skeleton King. Thank you for watching Mystic Realms Recap. Please like, share and subscribe. Have a great day.